Good afternoon, and welcome back to the happiest place on Earth. We're back at Disneyland. You know, even on a sweltering summer day like this, every time I pass through those gates, I feel so grateful and happy to be here. And over the past nearly 70 years, millions of people have enjoyed that same feeling of wonder and joy and happiness cruising down Main Street, USA, checking out Fantasyland and Frontierland, or exploring the wild, uncharted regions of Adventureland, and cruising through the jungle. If you have the right attitude, and attitude is very important here, then Disneyland is an endless source of wonder, excitement, adventure, and a place that truly inspires the imagination, all while offering guests the rare opportunity to step inside of their favorite stories, both new and old. And it's precisely because there is so much new and old at Disneyland that I decided to pop into my favorite place on Earth this afternoon, just to take a little dip and make a splash into a little Disneyland history. Now, the main thing I wanted to talk about is located all the way across the park. But before we get to that, I already see some historical changes underway out here that might be worth taking a look at while they're in their transformational stage. Check this out. Behind the Pirates of the Caribbean, you can see that what was Tarzan's Treehouse up until recently is all covered up by green tarps. And I say what was because not only is it clearly undergoing construction and refurbishment, but the treehouse is apparently also undergoing a major re-theme, rumored to be something to do with Encanto. Or Encanto, whichever you prefer. But no matter how big the changes to the theming end up being, the biggest change, no doubt, is right here in the middle of the walkway, because you'll notice there's nothing! The entire time that this was Tarzan's treehouse, right here in the middle of the walkway was a massive concrete tree trunk reaching up towards the sky. With stairs in it, you would climb up to get into the treehouse via a rope bridge that spanned the chasm here, and as you can see, that is all gone now. It really opened up this entire walkway here, and especially in the afternoon, a lot more sun comes pouring into Adventureland. And it's strange because it both feels like a very big change, which it is, but weirdly kind of also feels like it was always meant to be this way. Probably because it was. Now, as many of you are no doubt already aware, this wasn't always Tarzan's treehouse. Originally, it was the Swiss Family Robinson treehouse, and kind of like Star Wars Land or Pixar Pier today, it was tied into the Disney movie Swiss Family Robinson. It opened in November of 1962 and closed in 1999 to make way for Tarzan's treehouse. Again, another Disney movie tie-in. They've been doing this for a while. And that is when that giant tree was placed here in the center of the walkway to get up inside of the new Tarzan version, which itself is now no more. Now, I haven't been paying attention because I've been driving and filming all across the country on an epic road trip. But as far as I know, there's been no official announcement on the future of the treehouse here, which has led a lot of old school Disney fans to speculate and hope for a return of the Swiss Family Robinson theme out here, which of course I highly doubt will happen. I tend to believe the Encanto rumors. But the good news for diehard Swiss Family Robinson fans is that the original theming still exists, both at the Magic Kingdom in Florida and at Disneyland Paris, where there's still rocking out to that unforgettable song, the Switzka Polka. Anyway, that was just sort of an unexpected side quest to what I really wanted to talk about today. It always happens when I come to Disneyland, though. I just can't help myself. Like when I walk through Frontierland, for example, all I can think of is how over here by Big Thunder Mountain, where the wildest ride in the wilderness now reigns, you used to be able to hop on board the Mule Pack and ride an authentic old Western pack train on live animals. Or that beyond the castle, back here in the very back part of Fantasyland, this area back here used to be the home of a full-on pirate ship, which doubled as a restaurant and sold nothing but sponsored tuna products. The old chicken of the sea pirate ship. I just remembered, I know the guy who owns the old door into the restaurant part of the pirate ship. I don't think I'm allowed to say where it's at now, but I did have a sneaky little sniff. And it still smells like tuna. Anyway, that's the kind of stuff that fills my head as I walk around Disneyland. And speaking of pirate ships, although Tomorrowland might be the least piratey land in the park, it does have an awful lot of water inside of it. And I'm not just talking about the mist that used to come out of this rocket. All the way back in 1955 when the park first opened, the back of Tomorrowland was a giant lagoon where the short-lived attraction, the Phantom Boats, used to ply the waters, and the legendary Disneyland Viewliner used to circle around the edge, and where in 1959 we finally got the submarines. It's all been recently refurbished and it's more colorful than ever out here. Of course, I've talked a lot in the past about that journey through liquid space that was partially designed by my good friend Bob Gurr, and I'm sure we'll touch on its history again in the future. But that's not really the reason I'm interested in the lagoon today. This morning, I came across something I had totally forgotten that I had, which I really wanted to share with you guys, because I think most Disney fans are familiar with Disneyland's submarines and of course the giant submarine lagoon, but what a lot of people don't know is that when the Submarine Lagoon opened in 1959, it was also home to mermaids. Yes, you heard me, live, real life mermaids. In celebration of the new attraction opening here in 1958, the casting call went out for local young ladies who were strong swimmers to come get fitted with fake fins and starfish bras and join Disneyland's real-life fleet of submarines as Disneyland's real-life fleet of mermaids. Now, there's actually a lot of folklore and myths surrounding the mermaids here in the lagoon. And before there was so much Disney history available in books and online, people actually used to debate whether or not the Disneyland mermaids had existed at all. But not only in the summer of 1959 were the mermaids fantastically and wonderfully real, they went from being a one-time only sort of summer opening gimmick out here in the lagoon to actually returning in the second half of the 1960s for at least 3 other summers. And it was during one of these magical 1960s summers that some long-forgotten park guest turned his camera on them, and this is what I wanted to show you today. The actual live Disneyland mermaids. I know it's only a brief glimpse of these beautiful mermaids out here, these sultry sirens, but it's a rare one indeed, and I was stoked to find this a couple of years ago. And although I do actually have more footage, believe it or not, of the mermaids in the lagoon, I found this clip this morning and I just really wanted to share it with you guys. Now, if you're looking closely at the lagoon back then, you'll notice the mermaids are sitting sort of in front of a rock floating in the middle of the lagoon. And if you come out here today, there is a very prominent rock sticking up with the newly added Hank the Octopus from the Finding Dory movie from a couple of years ago. That's because they've just refurbished and spruced up the Finding Nemo submarine voyage, the modern iteration of the submarines. And anyway, you might be tempted to think, oh, the mermaids must have sat right in front of that Hank rock. But just a couple of moments of observation will show you that couldn't be the case, because as you see, Hank is very close to those submarines, and if there were mermaids in front of that rock, the submarines would have plowed right into them, and then, well, at least they would have had more stuff to serve with the chicken of the sea pirate ship. In reality, if you really want to know where the mermaids were, and a lot of Disney history fans are big sticklers for trying to figure out exactly where things were, pinpointing things back in the park's history, and you've actually got to come right down here over near the exit. The trees have grown up quite a bit, but if you poke your head through over here, it's pretty much the closest thing to matching that view that we're gonna get. As you can see, so much around the lagoon has changed. I mean, for starters, that walkway back there has completely changed. There's no more motorboat crews. The whole rim of the lagoon itself has changed. All the walkways are much wider, more sturdy, less bridges and such. But if we stand over here in the spot that I showed you, and if I count the pylons in the old footage, the monorail pylons, the mermaids were located roughly in front of the third one, which would be the one on our right now, just past those annoying, greedy seagulls, which makes a heck of a lot more sense than in front of Hank's rock over there, because that would be just about the dead middle of the lagoon out there, which makes sense because it's as far away from the submarines as you can possibly get. And even though those submarines are following a path, they are on a track down there, kind of a guide track. Back in 1959 and into the 60s, there were big uncovered propellers, and the mermaids hired to swim out there and sit on that rock would complain about if you got too close, you could feel the suction from them. So for their safety, it was best that they be right in the middle, far away from the moving submarines. Now, according to one historian who kindly sent us these photos here, you can actually see the mermaid's changing area in this photograph, that weird shape at the end of that dock on the left. That is where the mermaids would walk in and then have to get into a sitting position, put their tail on, and slip under the water. And you could see just how far they had to swim out to that rock there. Again, it must have been an incredible sight walking around Disneyland and seeing a mermaid waving at you from the lagoon. And I should tell you, many a tale has been told about local sailors who were checking out Disneyland on leave who would swim out there and try and talk to the mermaids. And that reminds me that men would sometimes throw dollar bills into the lagoon for the mermaids, who would happily collect them later on that day. Apparently even mermaids need money. Now, I don't know if it's the Mandela effect or what, but all my life I grew up believing that I saw mermaids in this lagoon, and I know I wasn't alone. Lots of the other annual pass holders who grew up around the neighborhood here like I did clearly must have heard stories about the mermaids from their parents or something walking around here as children, because they all swore they saw mermaids in here too. Now the combination of the sea creatures in the old submarine voyage ride, maybe with the Little Mermaid coming out in '89, plus old stories, maybe even old photos of the mermaids from this lagoon, I don't know what, must have all come together somehow to convince an entire generation of kids that they also saw these mermaids. But as far as I can tell from all the research I've ever done and all the reading on the subject over all the years of looking, it turns out that the live mermaids only swam out here during 4 magical summers. The first one on the opening summer, 1959, and then they submerged again, only to reappear in the summers of 1965, 66, and 67, never to be featured as a regular part of the Submarine Lagoon again. Now, folklore persists, so I'm sure it's possible they could have had models out there and done a photo shoot or some kind of advertisement, who knows? But 1967 was the last official swim of the mermaids, and there's a lot of other folklore surrounding the mermaids over here as well, mainly around why Disney eventually ended up getting rid of the mermaids out here. Even all the way back when they were here, rumors persisted about, you know, accidents and injuries. Mermaids getting turned into fish food by marauding submarines. And that was sort of the urban legend that I had always heard growing up. But it turns out with modern research that there were never any accidents or injuries of that kind. But I'd also heard reasons like, oh, the water is so insanely chlorinated down there that they were breaking out in crazy rashes. That could be partially true. I mean, there is chlorine in the water after all. But really, I think it all boils down to a matter of dollars and cents. I mean, for one thing, they were swimming out there with plastic tails on into the center of a watery lagoon with a live, active, gigantic ride going. I mean, after all, they hadn't built it with trap doors or something like they would do now to get them out there. They had to swim out there. So I'm sure safety and potential litigation was a consideration. But really, as cool as it was to have live mermaids out there, and as amazing as it probably was for all the guests and the audience on the shore, it wasn't a necessary part of keeping the attraction running. And let's not forget that the last year the mermaids swam was 1967, and Walt Disney passed away in 1966, leaving the company to be run by much more money-minded men. Show elements that aren't necessary for the attraction to run or don't make any additional money for the company, of course, would, as they ever have and ever shall, fall by the wayside in favor of saving a few dollars and cents here and there. Anyway, it's a fascinating little gem of Disneyland history now, and I had that little clip that I wanted to share with you. Like I said, I do have some more footage of Disneyland mermaids when they were out there, and although I have lots of future Disneyland history videos in the works, I don't know when I'd be able to fit that one in. So I thought, one, why not throw it out there now, and two, hey, good excuse to come down to the park. Ooh, and it has the added fringe bonus of being a location that's right next to the old yacht bar in the past, which is now, of course, Disneyland's Galactic Grill, where even those of us with very sensitive celiac disease can get some gluten-free French fries and a little Mr. Pibb. You know, whenever I come to Tomorrowland, I always think something's missing. And then I remember, something is missing. Motion. It's motion that's missing. Tomorrowland used to be a whole world of motion. Everything from the rockets being in the middle of the land to the people movers crisscrossing the skies overhead everywhere. Of course, there was the Skyway above us all, the sky buckets going over the lagoon, where the submarines and people movers met, and also, let's not forget, the monorail. The monorail is a huge fixture of Tomorrowland, and today, I didn't even notice until now, no monorail. I mean, heck, even the Autopia and the submarines that are going over here, both of those rides are sort of hidden from view when you walk through the land. And even though some of Disneyland's fastest moving and popular attractions are still located in Tomorrowland, it's like the future that was always in motion is suddenly ground to a halt. There's a lot of dead sort of unmovingness out here if you're super familiar with the motion of Tomorrowland's past. But you know what? The story of how Tomorrowland went from this to this, it's really a story best left for another time, particularly when it comes to the People Mover, because I've got a lot to show you guys about that. In fact, I've got a lot to show you at Disneyland, full stop. But for now, let's let the sun go down, because it's still like 93 degrees out here. We need the cover of darkness. There we go. The lights have come down low. And not as you watch this, but as I stand here, I just realized that today is the 53rd anniversary of the Haunted Mansion. So that was good fortune. Just rode that a couple times. Very lucky timing. Disneyland is once again cuckoo bananas at night. Fantasmic has returned. So the Rivers of America is already starting to fill up. The fireworks are back, and that's not all. Even the Main Street Electrical Parade is back. They always say it's going away forever, but it never does. Now, Fantasmic does get in the way and cause traffic problems, but it has one fringe benefit. Once people start lining up for the show, it makes the line for Pirates of the Caribbean ridiculously short. Nobody's in line but me and them. Look at this. It's glorious! Plus, it's not so hot now. Last time I was at Disneyland, Pirates of the Caribbean was closed for a little bit, and when I saw it reopen, I thought, no rush to get in there. I know what it looks like inside, so I'm stoked to actually get back on the ride, finally. Because it is, after all, one of my favorite things in the world, and possibly, I go back and forth on this, but possibly my favorite Disneyland ride of all of them. See, even then when I think about the dark rides, those are my favorite. When I think about the Haunted Mansion, it's my favorite. But it might be Pirates, it might be. There's just no way to be sure. Bienvenidos, marineros. Wait a minute, yo no soy marinero. Soy capitán. Oh my gosh, I didn't even notice until now. My boat is empty, which means I'm actually free to talk. It's actually very rare. Usually I'm very quietly talking directly in the microphone if you hear me talking on a ride. Weird. I love this old swamp. I love that alligator. Harney the alligator. Listen. Oh, that is glorious. Someday I just need the soundtrack to the Blue Bayou, this swamp here. Not the restaurant on our right. I don't need that soundtrack, but to the actual swamp. Just on one of those 10-hour sleeping video loops, you know? Gosh, that would be great. What's that?
Before you come to the proper place, but keep a good eye over the mates and hold on tight with both hands if you please. There'll be squalls ahead.
Uh-oh.
As they
Squalls! I forgot all about the squalls! Normally I duck behind other people to dodge the water. This time I'm all by myself and in the front. And yet somehow, not a drop on me. Woo! This is kind of scary, not gonna lie. But at least I've got the best seats in the house. Geronimo! Woo! You alright, everybody? Hope you got wet? Okay, we're good, we're good. Wow. Behold the cavern. I'd love to have a bat cave someday. But if not a bat cave, a pirate cave will do. A pirate cave will do. I love all the little details you never really notice. Like the sunken boat, all the cannons in the shadows, rigging, and just a pirate wreckage everywhere. Especially over here in the stow your weapons room, dude. There are so many little things in here, so much set dressing. They really did a fantastic job with this. And the same thing goes for the captain's quarters. I mean, I've been past these little scenes hundreds of times maybe in my life, and I feel like every once in a while still I'm like, hey, I've never noticed that thing before, you know? I love that the little haunted piano is back. The piano that plays itself. Wonderful. It's one of those little details I was talking about right here. If you ever look through there, oh snap, a perfectly framed dead pirate. Oh, friends, a treasure. Wait a minute, I forgot I was just going to show you a little bit of pirates. I've got to be getting home pretty soon.
Perhaps he knows too much. He's seen the cursed treasure. He knows where it is.
Well, maybe just a few of the highlights, huh? I can't stop now. Look at this. You know how in here the fort says, "We will never surrender." They're telling the truth, man. I've been in here for years, and they still haven't surrendered yet.
Do I hear
love the running pirate room. Even though there's a couple of pirates that are stuck, there always are. Look at this. It's Old Bill. And this is good news over here. The whole band is back with the donkey and the dog in tow. Now we just gotta fix this middle guy's hands, right? Give him his flute back. All right, guys, once again, I got carried away and showed too much. I can never seem to help myself when I get on board Pirates of the Caribbean. I just love it. I love it so much. But seriously, if you had $1 billion, and let's assume there was no world hunger or nothing better to do with your money, which ride would you build in your basement, huh? I don't think Pirates is a bad choice, honestly. There you go. What a fun one. Maybe Pirates like this, but with like a swimming pool as part of the cave. Oh, Pirate Grotto actions. Well, that was an unexpected treat, but I do actually have to get going. But don't worry, you guys. I know it took a long time since we hung out together at Disneyland, but we are going to do it again, and very soon. You know, from the early days when I was the only one running around here every day filming, it got kind of crowded, let's put it that way, out here at the parks, but I can't stay away from my true love forever, so we'll be back very shortly, sooner than you might expect. There's a lot more treasure in Disneyland than just this, and a lot more treasure in the Random Land archive of old Disneyland footage, which we're always looking to expand if you have any to send. And seriously, I haven't even shown you the very tip of the iceberg yet. We've got a lot coming up over the next year or so, and I'm really looking forward to all of you being there with me for it. Look at this imagination! Yes, Mickey destroyed everybody's mother-in-law! Happiness and joy have returned to Walt Disney's Magic Kingdoms! And boy, oh boy, there are people everywhere! All right, friends, we've had a few laughs. I've cried a little. We peeked a little into the vast depths of Disney history out here, braved the crowds, and now
We've done our duty. It's time to go home and sleep well.
see you next time, friends, in Random Land. I really like how indie merch is back in the parks. Nice to see old Indiana Jones, king of the archaeologists, represented again.
No Indiana Jones merch will ever be as good. That's the power of the Cobra, yes.
Ah, Dr. Jones is surprised I mentioned it. Whoa, look at this poor fellow with the pinched head. Wonder what happened. Must have been this tree root growing around it. It's pinching his head.